We are living in a very special moment right now because thanks to 2xKO and its launch, a lot of people are gonna get into the fighting game genre, either because this is the first fighting game that they try and actually like, or it's gonna be the first one that they want to play at a higher level and get really good at, just like it happened to me when I was a kid and played the KOF 98, or also the Street Fighter Alpha series and Killer Instinct, and then later in life tried to get really good at Dragon Ball Fighters. And I want to help you because I know that it can be a struggle to learn how to play a fighting game. They are very complex video games in comparison to many other genres and kind of unintuitive. So in this video, I'm gonna give you 5 key things to help you learn 2xKO and make your journey smoother and easier with the game. And the first thing that you gotta understand and learn is that you should not worry so much about combos, okay? This is a big mistake made by newcomers into fighting games. They hop into a fighting game and they wanna make the most crazy combos in the world and get that big void damage right away, but this is not something as relevant as it seems. It is arguably one of the latest things that you should learn when you're learning a fighting game. So what exactly should you learn first instead of combos? For example, you should probably start by understanding the most basic mechanics in the fighting game, like can you dash, can you jump, can you block in the air and on the ground or only in the ground? What are your buttons? You know, if you press your controller, your keyboard, whatever it is that you're playing, which buttons does the game have? This game, for example, has a light, medium, and heavy button, and then 2 special attack ones. Learning that is much more relevant than actually start to mash your controller and try to get combos or get into the combo trials and basically get disappointed that you cannot do any combos from them. So try to have that approach that is trying to be more universal and general than instead of being super specific and unique into the characters that you want to play. This game is going to offer a lot of universal mechanics that you can learn from the tutorials in 2xKO, which are very decent, and also from many beginner guides on YouTube. So do not get too crazy with your characters and the combos. Just try to have a more generalized mindset about the game overall. And it is actually kind of ironic because earlier in the history of fighting games, this was kind of like not that relevant to do, I would argue, in comparison to now. And why is that? Because nowadays modern fighting games are very mechanically dense. Like they have a lot of general universal system mechanics that all the characters can do and that they are available for the whole cast. So if you learn those mechanics very well, you can beat a lot of players that actually worried mostly about the unique mechanics of their characters but do not know how to use the universal system mechanics of 2xKO as a game, okay? So now it is more important than ever to ignore combos, ignore the uniqueness of the characters that you want to play at the start, and actually learn the universal tools that the game gives to everyone, okay? So start by that. Do the tutorials, take your time and go slow, you know, don't push yourself too much, be patient, and over time you're gonna get better. And of course, do not forget to actually have fun. It is still a game. If you have been enjoying the content until now or find it useful, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing. It helps me a ton, keeps the channel growing. I cover a ton of fighting games, including of course 2xKO and other ones, so if you like that, it's even better. And now let's get into tip number 2. And for tip number 2 is that you need to understand what are your characters and team overall win condition. Just like it happens in a game like League of Legends and other fighting games also, a lot of characters have in a specific situation or context in which they thrive and are the better version of that character. In League, for example, some characters need to scale and buy a lot of items and get to higher levels. In a fighting game, some characters need to be close to their opponent, other ones need to be far away, you know, and stuff like that. So if you're gonna play a character, you should probably worry about understanding in what situation your character shines and is actually strong, you know, so that you win more consistently, and why exactly is that strong for your character. So for example, if we're playing a character like Darius, okay, Darius is a character that doesn't have the best like screen control tools, he doesn't have any sort of fireball that is big, he has a very small fireball, and he has big buttons, but those can be parried and also can be jumped over because they have long recovery frames. So what does Darius want? He wants to be on top of you. You know, he wants to be right next to you, apply offense, start mixing you up with command grabs, overheads, and a lot of different stuff. Also bait parries because Darius is a character that is kind of weak weak to parries, but you can play around that and actually use it to your advantage as a Darius player. Okay, so this is something that happens with all of the characters in 2XKO. Like, all the characters have a specific win condition because of their kit and what is strong in their moveset. So again, instead of worrying about learning the combos for your characters and team, worry about what are their best moves and what situations are actually the ones in which they shine, so that you start overwhelming your opponent and winning. And for tip number 3, and this is something that even works for experienced players, is something that we even forget sometimes, and that is that in a fighting game, it is normal to find yourself in situations that have little counterplay, you know, that they are very hard to deal with and is very advantageous for your opponent. And a lot of the times you start thinking like, how do I deal with this character or this move or this special move in this specific situation, when the real question should be, how do I avoid to be in that situation in the first place? If you ask, you know, any very high level fighting game player, I'm talking about professional level, like tournament level players, they're gonna tell you that a lot of the times it is better to avoid a situation 100% if you can, than to actually try to learn and actively counterplay that, you know. And this happens in a lot of different fighting games and in a lot of competitive games overall, but for fun games, it is a hard truth that is hard to, you know, like accept, because you always want to have an answer in a fighting game to what you're dealing with. You want to be the guy that is able to kind of like go through everything and have good defense, good offense, and answer for everything. But the reality is that some tools are excessively strong, and the best way to deal with them is to avoid them actively in a match. So for example, let's say you're fighting Warwick, maybe you should avoid him hitting you with special moves so that he gets, you know, Bloodlust end stall, and then he gets a cross-up that has a wall bounce and can get almost a full life bar from your team out of one combo from an unreactable special move that does a cross-up. Like, kind of hard to deal with that. So in that sense, you need to be actively thinking how to avoid hard, you know, situations that have low counterplay, instead of thinking how to actually deal with them when they're already happening. And now we move into tip number 4, and this is kind of like two tips, you know, mixed up together because they are connected into the same thing. And it is that you need to use training mode, okay? A big mistake that a lot of people that are new to fighting games do is that they pick a character and jump right into matches, and believe me, you are gonna get destroyed if you find anyone that is, you know, barely competent at a fighting game and you know nothing. Like, you're not going to even be able to play the game. So you need to use training mode and do the tutorials and all of this, like educational content you can find on YouTube. You need to be kind of like in a mindset in which you're actually open to learn more than, you know, just playing and winning all the time. If you're someone that is trying to like get into a fighting game and you're expecting to win a lot right away, let me tell you, maybe fighting games are not for you, or you need to change that mindset right away. Like, you are going to lose a lot. It's not going to be an easy road in the sense that you can just, you know, stomp people out and stop playing after a couple of weeks because no one beats you. Like, that is simply not gonna happen in a fighting game. It is a reality. It is a genre of video games that is full of incredibly like high skilled players, and also it is and requires a lot of learning. So don't sleep in the power of, you know, booting up the game and maybe doing some sort of drills every day for 15 minutes in training mode about defense, offense with your characters and stuff like that, and getting used to the habit of learning before actually playing. Okay, for example, generally when a game comes out, I actually kind of like spend most of the time labbing and then get into matches later. And also, when I play, you know, any sort of like rank session, or I try to rank up in the ladder of the game, I also tend to lab in between matches and before the start of my rank session. Okay, so do not sleep on training mode. It's probably going to be even more relevant than the actual matches that you're going to play, at least when you're a beginner. And the second tip inside tip number 4 is that you should please worry about learning defense. Okay, this game, for example, is very like defensively dense in terms of mechanics, and a lot of the time what makes beginner players lose a lot is not their offense. Sometimes they have amazing offense sequences and basically ideas, is that they never block. You know, when you stand up after you get hit, learn to block, okay? Learn to be patient and let the other guy have their turn. Don't be too anxious about always being the guy on the offense. It is very relevant to have a mindset like that, because if you don't learn defense, at some point you're gonna get stomped by everyone in a fighting game, okay? So do not sleep not only on training mode, but on learning defense. And then for tip number 5, and this is something that everyone needs to hear when they are getting into fighting games, is something that I wish I hear when I started and trying to actually get good at them, and is that you need to have a positive mindset about not only losing, like I said earlier, but also the value of patience, you know, the value of like taking your time to learn a game. Because if you're always worried about winning, like I said earlier, if you do not have the patience to learn and you just want to win, you're gonna have a bad time actually with fighting games. I would say that is not the genre for you at all, if that is kind of like the way in which you want to approach it, unless you're like a prodigy, you know, into video games, especially into this genre. So you need to create a mindset in which, one, you're comfortable with losing, two, you're open to learn, you're open to the idea that everyone knows more than you know, just like that. And also you are open to value the fact that someone else is winning. Like sometimes, since we play fighting games online, you know, and it is not necessarily like in the 90s with the arcades when you had someone in your side and maybe they were your friend, we kind of forget that when you fight someone online, there's a person, you know, controlling the characters. And maybe that moment in which you felt bad because you lose was a great experience for the other guy, because it was the first match they won and they had a lot of fun. And if you kind of like build consciousness about that, sometimes losing is a great experience, because people do the most crazy things in fighting games, dude. Like you kind of get like even proud of your opponent sometimes with what they do, that is absolutely insanely hype and like super well thought out. So you kind of had to, you know, just develop a positive mindset about what it is to play and learn a fighting game, because you're gonna need it. Okay everybody, that was the video. I hope that you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, please consider giving the video a like again and subscribing. It helps me to grow as a channel, as a content creator. So thanks a lot for your support. And I just tried to compilate kind of like what I would have liked to hear when I was learning fighting games. So I hope that it was useful. I'm going to leave some videos in the pinned comment if you want to see more content from me, and see you on the next one.